Well, hello, 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 and happy Friday. I am back. Well, we are back. My partner in relationship conversation will be joining us shortly. Um, but definitely come on in the room and make sure I can get over here. I have to try to see so I can see what's going on in the chat. Um, Happy Friday. I hope it has been a good Friday for you and all is well. And you've had an amazing day. It's been beautiful here in the city of Dallas today. And so we enjoyed an amazing day. And so I hope it has been amazing for you. Um, I want to take a moment and um, definitely say thank you to those of you that has been rocking with us and coming on and being a part of, hey Mona, being a part of these conversations and all that um, we have been sharing. And I hope it's been beneficial to you and cause you to just think about, your relationships, be it romantic relationships, whether it is family relationships, work relationships, social relationships, whatever that is, but that it's helping you to really analyze and really um, thank you. Happy Friday to you. Is really helping you to really dig deep and think about how you are managing your relationships, how you're communicating in those relationships, because I'm telling you, it does make a difference and it does matter. And so, of course, we're getting ready um, from a business perspective, getting ready for Pen to Paper Tour. And so we're going to be sharing in Atlanta, Georgia, April 27th. So I just thought I would take the opportunity while I'm waiting on um, Mr. Jamal to join me tonight to just share these updates with you. So if you're in and around any of these cities, we'd love to see you. Here again, this is going to be a lot about gaining clarity and confidence, communication, and collaboration. And so we're going to be sharing, pouring in and pouring out in these areas, helping people to get clarity about vision, dreams, ideations, things of that nature, and helping you to have an experience that you can go to the next level in your life and in your business. And so our first stop on that tour is going to be Atlanta, Georgia, and then we will be on to, and that's April 27th. Then we're going to Hampton Roads, so the Norfolk, Virginia area on May 4th. And that's going to be an amazing time. We're excited about that. So for those of you that are in the Baltimore, D.C. area, and then you want to catch this particular one, May 4th, and we'll be at the Gaither there on Main Street 500, I think it is, Main Street in Norfolk. So that's going to be an amazing workshop. And then we head to Las Vegas, Nevada. And so that's where we turn up the heat and we bring in our young people. And we're going to be working with a youth and young adult for that particular That's going to be a 2-day event. So that's going to be a real fun one at the end of June, 29th and 30th. And then from there, we head to San Bernardino, California on August 3rd. And then we zigzag back across to Chicago, Illinois on the 10th of August. And then we prepare for September 7th in Portland, Oregon. We go back northwest and then we come back south for Houston, Texas on September 21st. And then we end the tour on October 5th in Washington, D.C. And then it culminates in Dallas for the annual Pen to Paper Conference. So it is going to be an amazing year. We're excited about the tour. Mr. Jamal is going to be on some of those locations, at some of those locations as well with the team. And so we're looking forward to an amazing time um, this year with Pen to Paper and having the opportunity to just touch, meet many of you in person that have been joining us on this quest this year. And so I think it's an awesome opportunity that we have to connect. And so Mr. Jamal is coming in and joining me here. But yeah, so we wanted to kind of piggyback on a conversation. And feel free, Mr. Jamal, how are you?
Doing well. How y'all doing tonight?
Doing good, doing good, doing good. Good to see you. Happy Good Friday
Likewise.
to you, sir.
Same to you.
Yes, yes. So you right on time. I just finished with some preliminaries talking about the tour and just letting everybody know where we're gonna be. and that kind of thing. So I just finished with that. So you're right on time. So I'm gonna kind of transition here in a minute and let Jamal kind of pick this up. But we've had a couple of guests on since we were last on, and one of those guests was Earth Shamina um, Holman, who wrote a book about Unearth that kind of coincides with her name, but it talked about rediscovering and uncovering, and she talked about her childhood trauma and some of the things that she had gone through, and we kind of picked up that piece and was talking about how our traumas in our past relationships and things that have happened in our lives can cause us to you know that gives us the platform or the framework for how we manage relationships going forward in our lives, and how that trauma sometimes is never really dealt with. And we hooked on to this one piece where she talked about looking for love in all the wrong places, because there was just this confusion about what love was, number one, what real relationships were, and the fact that what she had been taught and what she had seen as a child had been so distorted, and made to be so convoluted that she was just totally confused. And so it caused her to have these, relationships that were not productive, basically endured some of the same things as a result of the trauma that she had gone through. So Mr. Jamal's going to take this up tonight, and we're gonna dive into another facet of the piece of the conversation that we had begun.
So, hello everyone. Happy Good Friday. Um, I listened to the initial conversation that you had with Ms. Coleman, and just my brain started twisting and turning, and just thinking about everything that she said, and there's so many people with so many different stories, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and since it's Good Friday, I gotta say this, man. I'm so happy to know that God understands it all, right? He understands the
Yeah.
pain. He felt the pain.
Mm-hmm.
He experienced it all. Um, there's a few statements that she made. I'm gonna start with uh, she mentioned she had to let go of some things and purge some things, and she what hit me, she said, I had to drop weight. I dropped 60 pounds and was feeling better. and
Mm-hmm.
and I thought about weight.
Mm-hmm.
And Lord, I can't remember the scripture, but it talks about put away the sin and the weight, right?
So easily. Mm-hmm.
Right. So a lot of we focus in on sin, with you
Mm-hmm.
should be sensitive to sin, but weight isn't necessarily sin. You know what I mean?
Right. 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 Right.
Weight can be grief. Weight can be longing, and I can't speak for Miss Holman, but she mentioned the the situation with her dad and the abuse, and just trying to find
Mm-hmm.
something to fill that hole,
Mm-hmm.
and seeking that in relationships and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
um and I started thinking as a whole, like, how many weighty people do I have in my life?
That's
They just
good.
wait,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't necessarily have to be bad people, but they just wait. And I started thinking about the conversations that I've had over the years with people, and it's like, oh yeah, that's my homegirl. I've known her for years.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you know them for years don't mean they need to be your best friend, because for years they've anchored you to where you are, to that person they met 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm. Has that
keeping you
has that
back from
relationship
growth.
progressed? Yeah. Has it matured?
Have, have you grown? Have you learned? Have you,
Yeah.
you know, and I would argue a lot of us have a lot of heavy people around us
Mm-hmm.
that aren't adding real value to our lives, but we're
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with them.
Mm-hmm.
We're comfortable because, you know, they're not gonna say nothing when I slip up, or they're not gonna challenge me. And that's the thing, like, how much weight are we towing around every day? And that's holding us back from becoming who the best version of ourselves, but also to get into where God wants us to be. And so I really just kind of chewed on Miss Holman's just her story so much, and then to
Mm-hmm.
see, you know, the perseverance and coming out of so much,
Mm-hmm.
and to be
It was
able
a
to,
lot.
right, to be able to be transparent and to smile and to laugh. She was smiling. I mean, she
Yeah.
got this big old smile, all these white teeth, and I'm like, the only way you get through that is Christ. There's no, like, people kill themselves over stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because to your point, the weight of it is
Crazy.
so it's so heavy, and it is heavy mentally, it's heavy emotionally, it's heavy physically.
Yeah,
Because when things weigh you down in your heart, it weighs your body down, right? Um,
absolutely.
and when you begin to talk about weight, I also thought about the fact that we carry weight for other people because we won't tell people the truth. So we carry the weight of their improficiencies. We carry the weight of the fact that they refuse to come out of a comfort zone, right? So we don't
Mhm.
challenge them. Um, or we carry the weight of something that needs to be dealt with, but to your point, they're more comfortable with staying in the box on it. So we carry that weight, and then we carry the frustration because we don't know how to challenge them. And so oftentimes relationships are not as productive as they could be because we're afraid to step out of our positions. So, right, we've held a position for so long as friend, and you my friend,
Mhm.
and and da 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 da. But how many of us carry, and this is just one facet of it, there's so many facets
Right.
of how we carry weight when it comes to relationships. Because you can carry the weight of someone just you're dating, right? And you're holding on
Mhm.
to it because there's one piece that this person does that you feel like you need or you like, but then there's this a
Mhm.
whole other side that is really just dragging you through the mud. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because in order to
And,
stay with them, in order to be with them, you got to carry all of that.
right.
So it's a lot. Um, I mean, that's loaded. When you think about it, that's really, really, really
Oh
loaded.
yeah. Oh, and so, you know, another thing, just dissecting that conversation. And she said,
Hmm.
having her kids, right?
Yeah,
She
yeah.
was young when she had her kids.
Hmm.
And the some weight, that's weight too,
Oh yeah.
right? Because
You
she's
at
wrestling
14.
through, and you got
14.
you got a baby to worry about, and then on top of that, all the people that's like looming over you and judging you, like, there's
Absolutely.
so much. And and to know that after all of that, she's able to come out. And one of the things she said, that I absolutely loved is, she basically said, I'm fine. She was with this person, I think her ex-husband, for a long time. And then she was like, I'm trying to know, do I really like cheese? Or she said
Right,
something, but
right,
I'm
right.
using cheese.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do I really like cheese? Or did I say I like cheese because he liked cheese?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So finding herself again, and that's
Acceptance.
building, having that relationship with you, and loving you. And it's interesting. One of the things, I'm just like all over it. One of the things that I was thinking about as I listened to that thing, and I paused a couple of times to like chew on some things and write some things down. But as a man, right? I meet this woman. If I'm really in tune with myself, if I know me
Mhm.
and I'm really in tune with God, I just feel like I should be able to recognize when somebody is hurting, when a woman is hurting, when she is not exactly emotionally healthy.
Mhm.
And before I go, oh, she fine, and I want to see what comes of this, I should be able to say, hold on, there's something that I can sense. Like
Mhm.
my first job should be to protect, to to support my sister in Christ, right? And I feel like, and again, I don't know the whole situation, but I feel like a lot of times, guys, when we're looking out for our good, like here's this beautiful woman, she's doing well, she seems well, and we can miss signs like, hey, there's something else that supersedes, you
Mhm.
know, a relationship, or if that's what we're looking for, right? Because
Mhm.
I should want Bridget Moody to be healthy and good
Mhm.
before anything else, right? Like, and I think I was just sitting on that. I wrote some things down. As men, we are protectors, not just of our wives or our children,
Mhm.
of our societies, of our communities. We should be seeking, we should be perceptive, astute enough to recognize, hey, this woman got some heavy weight on her,
Mhm.
and be
Mhm.
able to set aside our own personal desires and maybe,
Yeah.
cater to that spiritual need and
Or
emotional.
she's carrying something. What is it?
Right.
And so and we kind of talked about this. So in the pursuit, as men are hunters, right? While you're hunting, are you analyzing the hunt?
Yeah.
Are you, your prey, for the lack of a better term, but still you're hunting. That's because that's how you're wired when you're looking, for a mate, someone to date, whatever the case may be. That's why it's not all hips and fingertips. You have to go beyond that, because at the end of the day, people are carrying so many different things and they're covering up. So there's a camouflage. Everybody has a camouflage to some extent, right? So you have to be looking beyond the hunt of the fingertips and the hips, right? Because that's the part that's most crucial and most important. Because when the breakdown happens on the inside emotionally, the body is the first thing to break down.
Yes.
And I know that to be true because I've experienced that. And there were often days that, because there was so much going on, I was carrying the weight of what I was dealing with in the relationship, having its struggles, and I'm seeing it on a decline and in a demise and headed toward divorce. And then I'm trying to manage the well-being of three children, you know, and trying to determine what's best to do, not to do, and trying to protect them while trying to manage my own emotions. And I had this conversation with my children as adults, and I said to them, I said, when you're in the heat of the moment and things like, I said, so I'm sure there are a lot of things that I need to apologize for because I was in survival mode.
Right.
So I wasn't in a nurturing mode on all the time. I was in survival mode because you're surviving the physical aspects of what you may be dealing with. You're trying to survive the emotional, um you know weight of it all and everything that's happening. You're trying to work a job and be sane, so intellectually you're trying to manage that, and then you still got to figure out what's the food, what's the dinner gonna be like, what we gonna
Yeah.
eat this week, what's the groceries gonna be, what am I doing for dinner, the kids got homework. So there are a whole lot of things that are going on. And to imagine a teen mom with two kids under 20, still going to school. That's why I said,
So, what's interesting? If Miss Holman ever sees this, I will tell her, and she already knows this because I could hear it in her voice. She might have stated it. She's a walking miracle.
Oh,
And not just
absolutely.
that, she's absolutely blessed because her kids turned out a lot different than they could have,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I have a very similar story. Like my mom raised 6 kids, 5 boys, 1 girl. Like
Mm-hmm.
now, as I'm older now, I wake up like, yo, how did she do it? And so, man, Ms. Holman, I tip my hat to you, and I am inspired by your story. And hopefully, man, like somebody somewhere gets to see that or read the book or something. And even if it's one person, it'll be amazing. But it's that weight. It's weight is I started looking at my life like who in my life, what are some things in my life that are unnecessary weights that I'm
Mm-hmm.
carrying around. And a lot of time it's like when people say, well, that's just who I am. Wait, that's not who you have to be.
Yeah,
In
because you
life you get to
decided
choose.
you decide I'm gonna
Yeah.
carry this brick. I'm gonna carry it for the rest of my life. So
Um,
Mona, you can find it
uh,
on this channel, the same channel. Mona was asking where she could find it. And so it's called From Trauma to Triumph. And it was about 2 weeks ago. It was the earlier part of March. So it's on this channel and you can find it. It's an amazing episode. So you'll definitely enjoy it.
and again,
Um,
it all goes back to relationship. It
absolutely.
all goes back. So if you are a father of children, understand your impact.
Hmm.
Your impact is, I mean, immense,
Great. Yes.
right? If
Yes.
if you are if you are a mother of children, understand your impact. One of the things I love that I did not hear when I listened to that story was Miss Holman tried to like, I call it excess love, where you
Hmm.
try to guard your children from everything and you end up
Overcompensate.
crippling
Yeah.
them,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And so, like, all of these things are important, but it's hard to think about that when you're going through hell,
Hmm. Yeah.
when you are struggling and wrestling, and some parents can become so distant because they're hurting and they don't even know
Hmm.
how to love
Hmm.
it. And so
Hmm.
it's a constant, like this thing is real, and this is why it goes back to God's order. There's a reason why the maker of everything said you
Yeah.
need to do things this way,
Yes.
because when you
Absolutely.
don't, it creates this
Hmm.
crazy,
Absolutely.
complex, ever-growing mess.
Absolutely it does. It's just it's so many layers and levels to this.
Oh,
It's just
absolutely.
so many things you can pull out of it and you can pull from it and infer. And here again, when we were going through the process of her writing her book, and it got weighty for her, because when you think about recalling some of the things, your experiences, and not just recalling them but penning them, right? And I had to say, just take a break. Take a break and process it, because if it's difficult to do, it's difficult to do. And don't force it, because it's a lot. It's a lot to manage. It's a lot emotionally, it's a lot intellectually. um and you can sometimes, when you're in situations like that, you can feel the pressure, your blood pressure,
Mhm.
you can feel the buildup in your body and the anxiety. And so it's an awful lot to manage and work through. um but it was just, and not knowing, you just think about, and I'm sure we all have things that we have experienced and gone through that um we didn't quite understand, what it was when we were going through it at
Yeah.
the age we went through it. And then as you get older, you come into the realization of what all of this meant, what was actually happening, and what you know now versus what you knew then. And the fact that, and the other thing is how families manage things, you know,
Yeah.
this
You
whole
gotta,
thing of being of not talking about it and not
yeah,
trying to have understanding about it does not help the person who's the victim or the person who's going through it,
at all,
because
at
not
all.
not understanding what's happening and basically being told that, just keep doing what you're doing because our business
Crazy.
stays in our house. And how is that an explanation for, you know the fact that
It's absolutely
i'm
crazy.
I'm struggling. I'm hurting. I'm going through something here. Somebody is violating me. Somebody is hurting me. It's abusive. It's, really just so we
Yeah.
have a responsibility. And I think for me, one of the things I'm just so transparent and have been with my kids, they'd be like, Mom, I was like, what's the truth? You need to know.
Yeah.
You need to know, and we're gonna have a conversation. So I'm saying that for a reason, and they just be like, I can't believe you saying that. Well, believe I'm saying it because at the end of the day, these are the kinds of conversations that you need to have, you need to know, and you need to be able to have with your children.
So, so here's the thing, and my generation has suffered from this, and the generations before me.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have certain conversations with your kids, if something happens to them that's traumatic, they won't come to you
No,
because you have taught them not to,
and we don't
right?
talk about it. Yeah, we don't talk about
At
it. So I
all.
definitely can't. I can't talk about and when it comes to relationships, especially because it's so funny. The day my oldest son lost his virginity, I knew it.
Mhm.
And because there was a countenance about him.
Oh yeah, it
And
changed.
yeah,
100%.
and I told him, and I said that day, I said, well, I hope you didn't get her pregnant. And lo and behold, that was the result. And he's always just been just like fascinated by the fact that I'm just so candid. But at the end of the day, because he came home, I can remember it as just like yesterday. I was in the kitchen, I was cooking. We were living in Tennessee at the time. He
Mhm.
came in, he kissed me on the cheek. Hey, mom, da, da. I said, okay, and I said, wait a minute, this doesn't happen, I mean, this was just, it was like whoop, the veil came off. And
But
he
that's the
was just
thing
so
too. Moms have superpowers. Y'all just be knowing stuff, man. Like
it, it was
it's
so it
crazy.
was and it was so big. And the reason why I led in with that was because when he found out that the girl was in fact expecting, he was so hurt. He didn't know how to take, because I had told him. He didn't even know how. I mean, when I'm talking, he cried like a baby boo who cried because he didn't know how to own up to it and how to tell me, because I mean, I already knew. But it was like I've now got to, because he thought he had just grabbed him some and he was good, he was gone, right? It was just a
It's
one
not how
time.
that
That's
works
all
every
it
time.
takes, sir. All it takes is one
Sure.
time.
That is all it takes.
When the
Um,
gate is open, the gate is open. When
it's
when the gun is
interesting.
fired, the gun is fired. So you either hit or you miss.
Miss, you can't.
So it was, but it was just like, oh my God. So it was a while, before he was married at the time when he had his second one. And so now he's married again, but on his fourth. But anyway,
Mhm.
uh, but it was just so interesting because, you know, being transparent and talking about these things made him so self-aware that I have royally screwed up because my mom already knew and told me, and I thought because I never even asked him,
Right.
I just said, I hope she's not pregnant. I hope you didn't
Boom.
get her pregnant, is what I said. And so lo and behold, but it made him think about his behavior from that point, in a different way. But had I not had that kind of relationship to, challenge him, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That could have been,
So
it could have been three or four more, you know, back
yeah,
to back.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was yesterday. This is a complete topic change, y'all, so forgive me. Um, it's kind of in the lines though.
Okay.
I went to the good old barbershop, you know. Uh, I was like, Easter's coming up. Let me get a little edge up, you know.
Yeah, I see you
And
tighten up tonight.
just a little bit, just a little bit. So I walk in a barbershop, you know, my barber's cutting a kid, and you know, conversations going on. And there's this lady in there, the mother of the two boys, man.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I was like, why you gotta do this to her? Don't wear tights. Stop wearing tights. It's not helping any. Um, and so her sons get cut, and everybody's talking about the Diddy thing. I don't even want to. And I just was like, all the energy y'all are putting into this thing.
Mm-hmm.
How is your life going? Then we
Mm-hmm.
started talking about the Maryland Bridge uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
falling and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
somehow she like I'm getting cut, and I swear she was doing this on purpose. Like she kept getting up and walking around and moving. And I'm like, you got too much Bobby to be doing. So she comes up to my barber and is like, this guy's trying to talk to me. What are you saying? And my barber goes, man, he looked like he in them streets. He in the streets. And she was like, I
Mm-hmm.
know, right? And as I listened to this woman talk, she has 4 kids. She's 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And she's looking at 29-year-olds.
Wow.
And she's like, oh yeah, he like me. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, see, the problem I have sometimes, I say things that I think. And I was like, man, you look like you like toxic. And she whipped around and looked at me and she was like, you think so? I was like, I don't think so. You're telling me that. So we started having this conversation, and this is a 40-year-old woman,
Wow.
Miss Moody,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And as I listened to her talk, I could hear a different kind of trauma. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
told you
Mm-hmm.
that you are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody told you that you're worth. Nobody. And now
Mm-hmm.
she has two. I know she has two sons. I don't know ages of her other
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at 40, just kind of it was like a laissez-faire
Mm-hmm.
kind of,
Mm-hmm. Blase,
you know, and,
blase.
and
Que
and I
sera,
thought to
sera.
myself, like, I told, you know, she asked me if I had any kids, and I said, no, ma'am. And she was like, wow, you know? And she kind of like paused there. And when we introduced ourselves, I shook her hand and I looked her in the eye, and she was uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
She was very uncomfortable. What was interesting is earlier, as I was sitting there, I was actually reading a book, but you
Mm-hmm.
know, peripheral vision.
Mm-hmm.
She kept walking around, and the guys in the shop, you know, they checking her, and she was comfortable with that. Like that was like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because they were
but
looking at
me,
her. Mm-hmm.
I was looking her in her eye, and she was almost
Mm-hmm.
like she like let go of my hand,
Mm-hmm.
and then she said, "You're different." I know. That
Mm-hmm.
was my response. Like, and so I
Mm-hmm.
look at like trauma comes in many forms,
Absolutely.
right? And it affects
Mm-hmm.
so much. And if we aren't having conversations, if we aren't, especially as fathers, if we aren't showing love to our kids,
Mm-hmm.
um, sharing with them how valuable and worthy they are, and all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
man,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
anything can happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely. And yeah.
as I think about Miss Holman, and she's doing a lot of, from what I gather, she does events where she speaks to young women.
Hmm.
I would I would ask her, I would beseech her, as the King James Version would say, to don't just talk to young women,
Yeah.
talk to those young men too.
Yeah.
They need to see the effect, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of those
Hmm.
young men have gone through the same thing, and
So
now
true.
they're out there just sowing their royal oats because they feel empty, they feel abused, they feel less than, they're ashamed, right? And so her story can, I mean, it doesn't matter, male or female, man. That's a powerful testimony.
It's true.
And I love that she said that I realize this isn't for me. Oh, Mona said, you know what? I agree with that, Mona. I agree with that.
Yep.
And that's something I deal with a lot. And believe me when I say I'm not perfect. Oh, I got some mess about me too. But I have this thing called a conscience brought on by the Holy Spirit that won't allow
Hmm.
me to sit
Hmm.
in mess.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I get that where, you know, I get, oh, you're stuck up, or wow, why are you this way? Because I'm a man. Like, I'm willing to be like, hey, that's on me. I'm sorry for that. I apologize for that. But I'm also not willing to compromise my core values and beliefs. Like, I will stand firm
Absolutely.
all by
Absolutely.
myself,
Absolutely. And that's one
right?
of the things that I think we find it very difficult to do when we have been um um we've been put into a culture or brought up in a culture or conditioned, should I say, to think in particular ways. And what you were describing there is a young woman that had not had the role model, that had not been shared with the value of who she was, be it mind, body, whatever. And so we feel like we have to go after the things that we think the people want, not realizing that the true authenticity of who we are is what's best, because it helps us to be the best version of ourselves. um
Yeah.
because it's easy to repeat authenticity, right? You don't have to try to figure out what to do in different environments and in different
Right. To try.
rooms. You just be yourself. And that's in a lot of areas and in a lot of homes and a lot of families and a lot of lives, that's not the case, because we've taken on a persona based on what we've been conditioned to do or who we've been conditioned to be. And sometimes that's survival mode. Sometimes that's to get what you need, or to get what you want, or to make it to the next corner, to the next block, to the next job, to whatever, because that's how you've been taught to do it, when we don't
Yeah.
have to at all do it that way. um
Yeah.
but if that's how we've been conditioned, we have to be detoxed, right? In
Mhm.
our thinking,
Mhm.
we have to be
Absolutely.
detoxed in a way. And so, to come across a man that was willing to see her, right, and be present in the moment with her, and talk to the real individual and not who she was, you know, presenting herself as, was totally foreign to her.
Yeah.
I would venture to say, and was probably something she had never encountered.
It was sad. And there's there's so many women and so many men that's walking around
Yeah,
life like that. And so
you're
my
right,
my
Mona.
my biggest thing um in my life has been like, how can I best serve people? Right. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a lot of nephews and nieces, right? From that aren't blood, but they're my nieces. I'm Uncle Jay to everybody. And I had two scenarios happen. I want to say like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister texted me and she was like, "Hey, Deuce, my nephew, Deuce is engaged now." So sorry, Deuce, if you watch this, don't get mad at me. But uh, he's in the military. Um, and he the last I heard of, he was in Korea. And so my sister, was concerned because you go overseas, da 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 da. So my sister called me and she was like, "Hey, Deuce is engaged. He's in Korea. You need to have a conversation with him." And I'm like, but so I hit him up. He a grown man. I'm like, "Yo, Deuce, what's up?" Hey, Uncle Jay. And I mean, I changed this kid's diapers.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
right? And so I was like, "You're engaged." He was like, "Yeah, man, I met her, a friend introduced us." And I was like, "Hold on, dude. Where did you meet her?"
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Oh, US." I'm not gonna tell where he lives at, but in the US, a friend, and we were friends, and
Mm-hmm.
we kind of hit it off. And so I was like, I was checking because I was like, you go overseas. He was like, "Oh no, Uncle, no, no, no. I know. We get training on that and all that." And he's probably 20 now, 21, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
probably 22. And I was like, "Okay, so tell me about it." He was like, "Well, I think we're aligned. This is what we're working on. We're talking, and even now we're still talking and about life and what we desire and all this stuff." And after the whole conversation, he was like, "Hey, thanks for calling me.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for loving me enough." He was like, "That's one thing I know about you. You're gonna always call me and check me, just in
Mm-hmm.
case." And he was like, "I
Mm-hmm.
love you." And I was like, "I love you too, man. I'm not listening because I will fly and tell you this ain't happening." Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I say all that to say we all have people, younger, older, in our lives
Yeah.
that we do them a disservice by holding our
Mm-hmm.
tongue.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
When we see
Because it's a way to
something,
share everything. It's a way to do it.
listen. And again, it's coming out of love, right? Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
man, Deuce, he's got a little sister too. That's Listen, if I go to jail, it's over that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She hit me up and she said, "Hey, are you coming in August?" I'm like, "Coming for what?" "For graduation." "From what?" "From high school." And I'm like, I can't, in my head, she's still that little girl, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And you better believe they may not like what you have to say. They
Mm-hmm.
may get upset with you,
Yeah.
but it is better to say something than
Mm-hmm.
to watch them ruin their entire lives.
You know, Samir, I don't know that, and not to cut you off,
No, 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 please, please.
but I don't know that people see that as authenticity. I don't think people really know what authenticity is because you have been conditioned. The words that I was saying, you've been conditioned to think a certain way. And so not knowing who your true self is or being aware of who your true self is, you can't be authentic. So oftentimes people are living in a facade. And this is for a lot of us, until there were things that um I did coming up, as a young woman. It wasn't authentically who I was. I did what I was conditioned to do. I didn't even know what that meant, And so oftentimes, until someone brings it to our attention to help us, we don't even know how to be our authentic selves. We don't know how to be better versions of ourselves because we only know what we've been taught and what we've been conditioned. And I think that's the gap, because we're not having those conversations, or someone's not having those conversations to help us identify with our authenticity. And the reason why that's
So,
so key, before you said, the reason why that's so key is the reason why I do pen to paper right today, because there's so many people who are existing but they're not living. They have no idea what their purpose in life is. They have no idea who they are. They're doing what someone else has conditioned them to do. They're women who are married and have husbands and families. They're doing what they were taught to do. Get a husband, have children, have a family, but they have no clue as to what they want out of life. And being in a relationship, being married does not negate the fact that you're an individual who has a purpose for why you were born. And we have to figure that out. But case in point, and it happens all the time.
So Samira, I love that. When you look at the definition of authentic, it's like it's Genesis, it's the undisputed origin of something, right? I believe that's
Mm-hmm.
literally the definition, undisputed origin. So what you're mentioning, some people may claim they're being authentic, but here's how I can't judge them or not. Like I don't
Right.
know you to that extent. But here's how you can know if something is authentic or not. So when people are, as you put it, when people are surviving because they've learned something, there's still an emptiness and a lack of fulfillment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you are being authentic, and I'll use myself as an example, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
am I
Yeah.
am a very she just put something up there.
Yeah, basically, yeah, she's saying what we're saying because you don't have that identity.
Right.
You absolutely don't know because it's just
But
like you know, Shamina's, account. What she was saying to us
mm,
was she was conditioned by other people. So she had to
yes.
detox from what had she been conditioned to do, to be, and that kind of, so she flowed with that. But then she came into her own. What do I like?
Samira,
What do I like?
Samira,
What
Samira.
Yeah, what do I like? And do I like that because I like it? Or do I like this because
So
someone else likes it? Am I doing it because they're doing it? Or am I doing it because it's what I want to do and I love to do?
Samira, I love it. So for all of you parents out there, let's talk about identity and
Hmm.
authenticity. A lot of times you see this, not just parents, you see it in the church. You know why a lot of our kids grow into adults who struggle with identity? Because we don't look at the gift that God gave us and say, okay, what did God put in this kid? What is
Hmm.
the thing that they keep talking about, that they're passionate about, that motivates them? We tell our
Hmm.
kids, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be an engineer. That's not what God put in them, right?
Hmm.
And we do that in church. Like,
Hmm.
we talk about discipling people and we try to disciple everybody to be like the pastor. We don't
Hmm.
need another, we don't need another pastor, whoever. We don't need that. I need you. The only person on the planet, let me rephrase that. The only person ever in the timeline of history that can do what God put in you is you. He will not
Hmm.
duplicate. And
Absolutely.
a lot of times as parents,
Absolutely.
we stifle and
Hmm.
constrain and restrict
Hmm.
what God put in our kids because we want them to be what we think they should be. We want them
Hmm.
to be carbon copies of us.
Hmm.
You should want your kids to be better than you are. And so we stifle that. So it's not always abuse, right?
Hmm.
A lot
Right.
of times we
Right.
just we tie off what God put in them. And so that's why they're frustrated and that's why they follow the crowd because they're
Hmm.
trying to fit in because they aren't allowed, they aren't supported at home. So they get support by other people who are
Hmm.
Samira, uh, believing they're authentic, but they
Hmm.
just doing the new fad, the new thing. One of my
And here's
mentees,
Go ahead.
uh, go ahead. No, no, because I can rant. I can go. I can because
But
she got me fired up.
when you say, see, this is so important because this is where we have the challenge because we try to be friends as opposed to parents. And at the end of the day, teaching, instructing, educating, and being a role model will never go out of style. And the moment that you forsake that, for a get along relationship with your child, it's headed in the wrong direction. Each of my children
100%.
have had their own situations, their own you know, improprieties, things that they've done. At the end of the day, I have been truthful with each of them. If it's
Yes.
wrong, it's wrong. And wrong and right is right, wrong is wrong, and right don't wrong nobody. And that's always been my thing. And I've always it what has been my line to them, do right because it's right. Now what you do when you get grown, because they knew there was a line, that
Yep.
ain't happening in this house. When you get grown, you do your own thing. But as even as adults, I'm gonna say to you, number one, what I know is right to the best of my ability. And I'm going to
Right.
also share with you to the best of my ability the way you should go relative to the word. And what you do with that is on you. But what will not be said is that I sided with you, or that I'm going to compromise because I don't want you to be upset with me. So I'd rather you go against the grain. I'd rather go against the grain and have you upset with me until you come to your senses and realize she was just trying to tell me what was right. And I've had it happen on many occasions with all three of them. But at
100%.
the end of the day,
So,
what you're not going to do is, feel like that, well, you order this, that, and the other, and that I'm
mm,
going to just condition myself, because I'm mom and I want to be cool with you. Okay, well, that's cool. No, it ain't cool. And it ain't right. And I ain't going.
so, so,
And so we have to really be honest, with ourselves, and we have to be honest
yes.
with the people in our lives, especially our children, because it does affect
So,
them in a way that we don't
yes,
know.
100%. So, Samira, so I agree with all that. So that goes back to the point of, for those of us who are around those kids and have the privilege of being involved in their lives, we need to represent something better. So, Ms.
Mhm.
Moody, you met my mom.
Mhm.
Would you say my mom is nice? Is my mom a nice lady?
Yeah, your
Based
mom
on
nice,
what you
but your
saw.
mom don't play. I can tell your mom don't play. Your mom is straight up.
Listen, everybody that meets my
I'm nice
mom is
too,
like,
but I don't play.
right. They're like, oh, your mom is so sweet and quiet. And I'm like, listen, y'all, that is a show. My mom is the most militant, sometimes violent person
Uh-uh.
ever. But you got to understand why, though. My mom raised
Yeah,
five
5
boys
boys. Yeah.
and one girl. If my mom was
Yeah.
coming in here talking about I need you guys to behave, we were bigger than her at 7. Like,
Yeah.
you can't whisper,
Right.
right?
That part.
But one thing I can say, though, is like, I got to give my mom credit for some stuff. Um, my mom has never tried. I don't know about all them other kids that are allegedly hers. But as far as me, she has never tried to change who I am. Now,
Mhm.
who I am has got me knocked out a couple times because I ask questions and I ask some hard questions.
Mhm.
And in the island culture in San Croix and Santa Cruz, you ask the question the wrong way, you're gonna wake up the next day. But my mom has always allowed us to be ourselves because I think she was smart enough to know you like that's who they are, right?
Mhm.
Now there's a line of respect, right, that you
Yeah,
don't cross.
absolutely.
Let me tell y'all
Absolutely.
something. I am not friends with my mother. We not friends at all.
Mhm.
There was never a thought in my mind that my mom was my friend.
Mhm.
In my mind, my mom was the warden. And if I wanted to eat
Not the water.
and if I wanted to sleep, I needed to not get on her nerves just enough, right? And
Listen.
the
Listen. You
yes, there's
cannot.
a struggle. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying you can't play. I mean, because and this is the thing. When I was coming up, same thing. I didn't get whoopings because I saw my siblings get whoopings, and I'm like, I ain't going down that road. You know what I mean? But I had 2 boys and a girl, And the last boy was like, the first one tried me. He tried me one time. He did that to me, and he found himself in the floor, of course, and no water, just baptized him real quick. But then I had the younger one that thought everything was a joke, everything was comical, everything was funny. So he got whoopings like every day, like on routine kind of a cadence. But there had to be this stick to itness. There had to be this, you have to be firm. And I mean, their dad was in the home. But at the end of the day, I was more of the disciplinarian because he was like, he would, their dad would like be when it just got too rough, like, when my oldest son came at me, then he kind of took it up. When they would just kind of, defy what I was saying or something like that and continue. I'm like, but now I need you to be rolling when they doing this crazy stuff. But
But
it has to be
that
some
balance.
consistency there, right?
Mhm.
Because if not, you just like you said, you were inquisitive. My 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 youngest son, same way, everything was a question. Well, why? Well, why this and so and so, and so there were times we'd indulge that, but there were other times we had to explain to him, you cannot, it's just like the kid on the court. Well, he's not a kid, but the man on the court has got to learn how to keep his mouth closed. You can't
Yep.
question everything. There's a time and a place for everything. And so then
Yes.
that's the time to teach. So then you got to teach, you know. Um, but then you have to be
Yep.
firm, because if not, things go awry, and it does impact the lives of your children as they grow and as they mature.
Absolutely.
Because when they walk into rooms and environments and it's not what they're used to, and somebody says, okay, you going to jail, or you got to pay a fine because you violated this, or whatever the case may be, you have to pay a price for it, then they looking crazy because nobody ever disciplined and brought them back into alignment.
Mm.
And I feel like
Mm.
that's something that young people want. Children want it. They want
Oh
structure.
yeah. Oh,
You know,
100%.
they want
100%.
structure, and they will love the person that disciplines them and structures them, as opposed to somebody that just gives them their way.
Yes.
Because if you allow them to have their way, then they want their way
Mhm. So
all the time.
I would add this just to spark the conversation. Discipline is necessary.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And not but, and I would add, what's more effective than discipline is the parents modeling what they are saying. So one of the
Mm-hmm.
things, uh, one day I one day I'll convince my mom to do a podcast or something with me. Ugh, I can't believe I'm saying this. Um,
Hey,
and
May 4th is gonna be a perfect time. We'll pull her in.
no, that's too soon. We're talking
She got a
2055. Like
whole month. No, she has a whole
we're
month, a whole
talking,
30 days. No.
no,
Mom,
no.
if you're
So
listening, we want you to be on the podcast
you know
May
she
4th.
listening. So
May 4th. She
my
ready. She
mom
gonna be ready. She
has
gonna be ready.
my mom has a crazy testimony,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't even know all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We like when I tell y'all we've been through some stuff. We've
Mm-hmm.
been through some stuff. But I will tell you the one thing that's consistent, which I believe is why I write the way that I write.
Mm-hmm.
Rain, sleet, hell, brimstone, fire. My mom was praying and my mom was
Mm-hmm.
reading that word,
Mm-hmm.
right? We used to sit, because in the islands we had the marble tile. We would sit around her and she would read Bible stories. And
Mm-hmm.
what I learned later from my siblings, everybody was listening for something different, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
my brothers and I, for the most part, we love like David, because you're reading about war, you're reading about all
Yeah.
this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
David killed this person, David did what? What? He took his girl and killed him. I was like, oh my gosh, like it was crazy. But this is how, like, when we got in trouble as we got older, you're not going to church, you're not going to that youth ministry thing. And it's like, what? What are you doing? That was a strange way to punish people.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom has always been consistent, no matter what was going on, good, bad, indifferent. She was
Mm-hmm.
in that word and she was praying,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Matter of fact, like I said this before and I'll say it again. If you open the front cover of your Bible and they give credits, you'll see God, Jesus, you see Moses, you'll see, and then you'll see Yvonne Bazille. She helped write it, 100%. My mom quotes the Bible like she wrote it.
Oh boy. Yeah.
But it's like it's a consistency. So we want our kids to be a certain way.
You
Well,
have
are
to
you
have the word.
reading? Are you reading your Bible? Are you praying? Are you praying
Hmm.
with them? Are you reading with them? Is church optional? We ain't had no choice.
There
You
was no
getting
choice.
up and you going,
Hmm.
but see, it's too many people nowadays. And by the way, if you're a grandparent and you have your grandkids a lot, you are part of this conversation too. Like you are just as responsible. If your grandkids are with you a lot, you have
Hmm.
to do the same thing.
Yeah,
And
because
it is
you know
wild. Like
when I serve, my kids serve. You know, Bible study,
you gonna sing in that
consistent.
choir.
Yeah.
They want
So
no option.
they did angel choir, they did junior choir, they did youth choir, they did all the choirs. They went to the vacation Bible schools, they went to the Bible studies, they were there. You know, and I'm thankful because of the way we did that. And when we would travel to do ministry, they went. We never left them at home. I think one or two times when the younger two were babies. But after that, whenever we would go to travel, when we go to do ministry, they would go as well. We would take a day and make sure we spent that time with them, and it helped to curate a flow for them that it wasn't all church, it wasn't all business, but at the end of the day, they knew the heart of it, and to this day, they are all rooted and they're all grounded, and so the word is a viable, a very essential part of their lives, and so they do ministry on their own levels. You know, my sons are musicians, so they play, and I'm glad that they did not get this taste in their mouth, because it's all about how you train and how you rear. And I was the reader in our Bible studies for years. Every Tuesday night, I was reading. Now, I didn't only study at the house and that kind of stuff, and we had all books everywhere and 29 different kind of
Right.
Bibles and translations, but they heard me read in the Bible study every Tuesday night. So some of those Tuesday nights they would be in their own Bible study, but some of them they would be in the
Right.
main sanctuary. So they would hear me reading for our bishop, you know, and he would do this and read, stop, read. So those stories were not only being heard at home, but they were being heard because of the way our Bible studies were structured at that time. And so it reiterated that word. And so whether they wanted to or not, that word was falling on their ears in both environments. And so it's important, and one of the things, Evangeline is on here, and her storytelling, the book she just wrote for children, Grandma Dale and the Grands, and I think it's going to bring back, and I was saying to her, I think it's going to bring back something that has been lost, because that's something that a lot of parents don't do anymore, and because they give them these iPads and stuff and these computers, and the children just scroll. At 18 months and a year old, they got their little finger and they just scrolling across the screens and stuff. So nobody's
Yeah.
reading. They're not learning to read. They're not
So
learning to write anymore. And so
no interaction.
these relationships we have to bring back. And so it means we can't lose some of the basic fundamental structures of family and teaching, because the
I'm
structure
not
of
gonna go there
schools
tonight.
it's just
Yeah.
changing. All of it
Yeah.
is changing, and we
So
have to teach them ourselves.
I almost went somewhere, but we don't I'm not gonna go there tonight because it's a little deep. It's a little heavy. And I
We
saw
might want to
Mona.
say Mona has a question. They were sometimes, they never resented me, and I'm grateful for that, Mona. They would get a little frustrated sometimes, but there were always perks. So if they had to stay with me, because not only I did some of everything. I mean, I was an elder in the church. I was praise and worship leader, so I had rehearsals. So the rehearsals, the boys loved it. Now, my daughter kind of went along for the ride, but the boys loved it because they both played drums. So they would get a chance to get on the instruments and stuff like that and kick it, and they would let them play sometimes. And so eventually they became musicians. But because we had this little ritual on Wednesdays when I pick them up from school, they knew we were going back to the church. So we would always go to this restaurant, or whatever restaurant they wanted to go to, and have dinner, if because Wednesdays was just so busy. So there were different little things that I did as a parent that their dad did to make sure that they enjoyed their involvement in ministry. Um,
Okay.
like when we would take them to travel, we made one of that, we made a day that it wasn't about us, it was about them. Um, and so they really learned to find their place from youth ministry, children's church on to youth ministry on to, adults. And so now, um, and they kind of went in different directions at times, but it centered them and they all came back. So I'm grateful that they never did. But
So,
there are people that I know that their children resented them for being in church all the time.
so Mona, my imaginary children, I would say, I would say it doesn't matter if they resent you because they could spend all their time somewhere else. And at least in the church, they may not, they may be upset or whatever, but it's getting in them. So they know where to come back when life hits them, right? And going back to what you said about, kids not learning how to read and write. And I guess I'm just giving my mom props today. So mom, you owe me some money. But because I'm just praising your name right now. So my mother, by the time I went to kindergarten, I could read, I could write in print and in cursive.
Mhm.
I was already learning my cursive. Like my mom won't playing these games like that. If you could write the whole paragraph right. If that one word got off the line, write it again. We're
Mhm.
talking like my mom won't play multiplication tables already learned. But
Mhm.
now this gonna sound real bad. We got dumb kids because nobody's taking the time because I really want to touch on this, but I ain't gonna go there. Mommy wants a career and daddy wants a career. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my career because I'm a boss and I'm making all this money and we need this money. And hold on, what's your security? Is your security in the money you're making or God? Just saying. What's your first ministry? Just saying. But
So
we get
these are
caught up.
questions now, because we're gonna have to deal with these questions because you starting to
I'm
step
looking
over
at the
into
time.
stuff.
I'm looking
Yeah, I
at the
know,
time.
I know, I know, but you throwing this stuff out, so we're gonna have to come back and we're gonna have to grab this now. I mean, I'm trying to see how I'm gonna make this work because next Friday I'm traveling. Oh, so we'll see. But at the end of the day, to the point that you're making, these things have to come back. We have to make sure that we are taking the time relationally with our children, with our significant others, with our spouses, and we need to make these things important and we need to make them work and we need to make sure that we are taking the time to talk about these various traumas, which is where we start the conversation out tonight. And for those of you that did not see the episode with Shamina Holman from Trauma to Triumph, go back and watch it and listen to what she shared. And she shared some very vulnerable pieces. And by the same token, go and get the book because she talks about all of it. And she talks about the trauma. She talks about the mother-daughter relationship. She talks about the relationship with her dad, the trauma that was there, and how hurt people. And when you don't know because you were conditioned to do a thing or it happened to you, you don't even have the wherewithal to fight for me because you don't know how to fight because nobody fought for you. So it goes really, 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 really deep. And we need to really think about how we're curating our lives as we move forward. And if you have young children that are, still in your home, or even if they're grown, there may be some conversations that you may need to sit down and have because just so that you can get to that place of authenticity. You can get to that place of really self awareness and making sure that the identity of who you are is the best version of yourself and that you're not continuing to carry out something that you've been conditioned to be or, cultured to be. But it's really who God, created you to be. And that's the place that you want to get to. And making sure that we seek first the kingdom of God, Matthew 6:33, that we first seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And then we let everything else come into play. And it always will. It always will. Um, and just learning to really put God first and find out who we are in him. And
Absolutely.
I say this to people all the time, and we're gonna be done tonight, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you. But we have to figure out what the plan is. And oftentimes we don't seek him for the plan. We know he has one, but we got to seek him for the plan so we understand the purpose, because there's a reason why you were born. And oftentimes when people, especially in these pen to paper settings, we go into that piece of vision and what you see about you and how do you see you, because if you don't see you, it's going to be hard for you to help anybody else see them. And so you got to tap into, why am I here? And what's my why for what I'm doing? Because there's a reason. And if that's not authentically your reason, then you got to figure out what's your why and what's your reason.
And when you do own it, like you
Yep,
really got to own it.
absolutely.
Like,
Embody it. Embody it.
because
Embody it.
everybody's not going to like your why, and people may fall off, and that's absolutely okay. You know,
Yep,
I think we get too concerned with being liked, and we'll sacrifice purpose for
absolutely.
courtesy and being liked.
Absolutely.
And
And continue
that
to
is,
exist and not living. And there's a whole
uh,
life out here to be lived. And
I want it
when we
all.
tap into it, yes, absolutely. Well, it's been another Friday night chat motivation conversation. I hope you've gotten something out of this, that it's benefited your life. You walked away with a thought to ponder on, something to conversation to have, maybe. So if you've been, hanging out with us and you haven't subscribed, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's number one. Number two, if there's something that, these conversations are really doing for you, will you share this with somebody else and have them join us, and engage? Because I think it's therapeutic and cathartic, not only to write, but to have conversations that we don't normally have, and to be engaged and be a part of them. So we appreciate your engagement. We appreciate your questions, because that also helps us to curate our conversations. And so we enjoy it. And we thank you always for participating and being a part. So thank you, Mona and Evangeline
Samira,
and Samira. We thank you all for
yeah, they
chiming
was in
in,
here
and
tonight.
yeah, and for chiming in and for engaging, for asking questions and being in the chat. And we appreciate it. And we're going to keep it going. All right. So if we're not on tonight, that means somebody's traveling or out of town or something. But at the end of the day, if we have to pre-record it and bring it to you, we'll do that. Especially as the tour starts and we are on the road, and there'll be a lot of times that we'll do on location. So thank you all. Have a good night. Happy Good Friday to you. I hope your day was a blessing. Wonderful Resurrection Sunday to you. Hope you're going to
Yes,
be in somebody's house of prayer and on Sunday, and you're getting the word. Don't just go to see what people got on, but go get the word and dress your heart up,
I'm going to
dress your
three
spirit up.
services. Three.
I'm gonna be there. It's gonna be a long day at the Potter's house, but I know
Oh
it's gonna
yeah,
be a blessed
it's
day. It's
gonna.
gonna be a good word. But we'll see you guys back here next week, one way or the other. And feel free, yeah, send us some notes, messages. You go back and watch it. Put some
Questions.
yeah, questions, whatever. Put it in the, put it in the chat. Go in there and put it in the notes and let us know, and we'll respond. All right. Thank y'all. Have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time right here.